If you're just here for the build planner, make sure you do me a favor. If you do end up enjoying the build, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. It really does help me out. But everybody else, welcome to the video. In today's video, we're gonna be looking at our Endgame Falconer build. I'm about level 88 right now. A lot of the gameplay was from like early to mid 80s. And overall, this thing is insane. This is all about buffing all parts of our Falcon. It's not just a dive bomb build. And it's not just an explosive trap setup. It's going to be using everything together to buff each other, and it's going to end up dealing a ton of damage. This has been the best bossing build I've ever used in this game. This has been one of the best map clears I've ever used in this game, and it's also been really, really tanky. Normally with Rogue, if you get hit, you end up dying, and right now I've been able to live quite a few hits from very powerful attacks, which has been really nice. And I'm still even missing like void resistance. I'm at 0 void resistance, and I'm about to be running like 200 corruption, which I know isn't that high, but I just haven't had time to farm it up yet. And it is still incredibly strong, and there's so many improvements that can be had. So we're gonna go through everything that I'm using right now. I'm gonna give you guys some earlier game alternatives too, if you guys don't have this gear yet. But overall, I wanted to give you guys an end goal to work towards and give you the steps along the way. So that's what we're going to be going through with this video. There's going to be a lot of synergies, like certain abilities in your skill trees are going to play into your other abilities. So there's going to be a lot going on, a lot of dots to connect. So I'm going to do my best to give you guys all of that information that you need. But let's go ahead and jump into the build. I think the best place to start with this build is going to end up just being our skills, and we're using the entire Falconer line here. So explosive trap, net, aerial assault, dive bomb, and falconry. Early game up until about like level 55, I believe is when I swapped. Before I threw on net, I had flurry there just as a generator. I was just having like heal on crit and mana gain stuff, purely using it as a generator. I wasn't using it for any sort of damage. But once you get to about level 55, you should have all the gear and passives that you need to sustain your mana pretty well, at least well enough to get the job done for everything that you're doing. And then you can swap over to net, because that's going to end up buffing our Falcon damage and doing a few other things for us that work out really nice. But let's start off with falconry, just because it is kind of the main base thing that's going to be boosting up your Falcon. So down here in the bottom right, you got train to hunt, go for the eyes, and expose weakness. This is going to give you damage, crit chance, and crit multi for your Falcon based off of yours, which is going to be really nice. I do have extra points in here from my bow, and we'll get to that in a little bit once we get to the gear. I would say if there's things that you guys, if you just have base 20 points, get rid of like the number of hits. I do really like Hunter Spoils, just so you can maintain your mana a little bit better. So you can drop some points out of here, and maybe like a point out of like, is it a bird, anything like that, or even side by side if you want to use it less. It's completely up to you. You can get everything that you need for 20 points here in falconry. Otherwise, I do go up to avian arsenal, so our character damage goes into our falcon damage. Overall, that is our falconry skill tree. The actual Falcon Strikes does really good damage, and it's also really good clear, especially once you get avian stamina and get more hits from it. It is really nice for just kind of locking down an area if you're running away from a huge group of enemies. Moving on over to explosive trap next, just because this is our other main ability. And what we're going to be doing with this is grabbing blast rain with impact triggers. So all of our traps are going to be shot out as bow damage, and they're instantly going to explode. And what that's going to allow us to do is stack up sky signal. So this is going to give us elemental and physical penetration, and allow us to also get falcon seals recovered whenever our explosive traps detonate. And when you combine all of this with trap sprinkler, automated bombardment, and trebuchet, this is going to end up echoing this essentially like 2 to 3 times. And each one of those is going to be essentially another like bow cast. So it's going to play into some of our passives that we're going to be looking at later. And it's also going to be stacking up your sky signal really, really high very quickly with a limited number of shots. And then make sure you do grab the mana efficiency nodes over here, just because mana is going to be a limiting factor with this build, at least before you get a really high mana pool and learn how to space out your shots correctly. But right now it's going to be costing 16 mana. Overall, I can use this to my heart's content. Very rarely will I actually run out of mana right now at about 260, but there's gonna be some things that I can do to maintain it a little bit better. Moving on over to aerial assault. When I was originally planning this build, I was going to make this kind of more a utility traversal skill. And this thing ended up dealing insane amounts of damage, and also it provides us with a ton of buffs. So the main thing in aerial assault that you're going to be grabbing is the direct damage to high health enemies and make it apply to bosses. This is what you're going to be using to essentially clear. You're just going to be popping this over and over and over into groups of enemies. With the amount of adds there are in this game, you can essentially get the whole cooldown from this back on use, at least if you use it into a big enough group. And then if you make your character damage go into the feather burst damage, you're going to be hitting incredibly hard with this. You're going to be killing basically any trash mob you're going to be hitting like 20 to 50k depending on what buffs you have stacked up. So you're going to be killing rares enemies with this and a lot more. So I really do think aerial assault is a fantastic damage skill. Once I get a few more points, if I ever get to the relic that I want, I will probably go into Featherstorm, at least give that a go. But for right now, I have not been going into Featherstorm. Otherwise, coordinated assault just for more cooldowns, getting some mana back down here and refreshing resolve. And then the big thing that is going to be helping out our damage is going to be aerial prowess, and then going into terror wings. What this is going to allow us to do is stack up our damage really, really high. So if we go ahead and take a look at that really quick, we go ahead and use aerial assault. We're going to do this. Now, if we were to shoot our bow, we're not going to be stacking it up. You don't see the buff anywhere down here, but this is where net is going to be a very big player. So if we go ahead and aerial assault and then spam our nets, we can see we're actually stacking this up to essentially the 36. This is going to be way easier in an actual monolith, just because there's more enemies. You can get this to 36 in like 1 to 3 throws, depending on how many enemies there are. And then from here is where you can actually consume those on like a dive bomb and do a bunch of damage. Those with just nothing else going on did over 1 million to these training dummies on those crits. So that's where you can get a ton of damage. You can hit like 2-3 million depending on what the enemy's resistances are and what like buffs you have stacked up. So that's where net comes into play in terms of aerial prowess and helping that out. Otherwise, for dive bomb, this is going to be your big damage skill, and there's going to be a few key things in here. Talon knives, just so our stats from our weapons can go into this. So like our bow right now has base crit chance. It's going to help out with your base crit chance. Otherwise, just some damage down here and making it take less time to call down. I do like to have the United Assault maxed out just so you can spam this more often. It really is going to help out, like, obviously your damage, but also your survivability, just because you never really have to worry about not having a map clearing ability. And if you get into trouble, just press this button, everything around you is gone. Now, the thing that I was actually really surprised about was Featherfall. I was originally just going to use this to apply some armor shred stacks, but there are a ton of times Featherfall actually completely negates dive bomb, because this does like a ton of damage too. And you're going to end up killing things even before dive bomb lands. So I really do like Featherfall. I think that is really cool. And then you can combine that with Talon Blades and get that crit chance and crit multi here on these stacks. And then it is very easy to get over 5 stacks. So I do like to just have like the increased movement speed down here, just because I do have some extra points with my dive bomb because of some of the gear that I'm currently running. If you guys don't have like this many points, don't worry about the armor shred. Don't worry about the movement speed. Just fill up Featherfall as much as you can and grab Talon Blades. Otherwise, these areas, definitely make sure you get to those with the 20 points that you have at base. Now, finally, moving on over to net. This is mostly a utility skill for us. So the main portion of this is going to be exposed bait, another 40% multiplicative for your Falcon. So you're going to be throwing this a lot at like rares and bosses. Just make sure you always have like net on them, so you can get that 40%. So I do spec into a little bit of duration with the points that I have. I like Caltrops just for a little bit of slow. I don't like to move with this, so I don't let myself flip backwards. And then I grab leading the hunts over here and making sure enemies can't dodge or avoid crits. Depending on what your monolith modifiers are, this can help you out a lot. If you happen to have like enemies can dodge, this is going to help you make sure that you kill those rare enemies in one hit. But overall, those are my 5 skills right now with this build, and I've been pretty happy with this. And once we get the actual proper gear, we can fill in even more points and make it even crazier. So I'm really excited to see how this turns out once I get my perfect gear. Quickly taking a look at our passive trees. So starting off in our rogue, I like to just max out our dex and health. So dex is going to be really nice for us because not only does it just give us like more added damage to our Falcon, it's also going to give it flat damage too per 4 dexterity we have. So that's going to be a main stat that we're going to be buffing up across our passives and our gear, because it can help out our damage all across the board. Otherwise, I just put 2 points into Guile to move over through the tiers. Otherwise, Evasion for the less damage taken while moving and the dodge rating, and also Agility for haste on hit chance, just so we can get clearing a little bit quicker. And then right now, just because of my gear, I have 8 points into critical precision. If I end up getting like critical hit chance on my gear and idols like I'd want to, I could probably take a lot of these points out and move them into more dexterity things across the 4 skill trees. But then moving down over to our Falconer, main things are going to be Wilderness Scout, Raptor Wings, Handler. Big one later on, don't focus on this right away, is Outlander's Tenacity. This is going to be a huge endurance threshold buff, which is going to be really, really nice for you. A big one that you want to be grabbing early on is Stamina of the Rover, so you can get mana on dodge. It's going to help out your sustain a little bit better. I do just put 1 point into Ranger's Mark so we can have a chance to buff our Falcon melee damage. I don't really need it for bow damage. I'm just doing it straight up for the Falcon buff. It will scale off some bow stuff, so you can max that out if you'd like to, but I just like 1 point in there. Otherwise, some more flat damage over here with Tactician. Otherwise, the 3-point bonus into Relentless Talons. Big one is the connection node here, so we can get our Falcon abilities to insta-cast. Another big one is going to be crit chance for both ourselves and minion, and also crit multis for them. The 5-point bonus over here into Finesse Them is going to be a huge bonus, because we can get ourselves more minion crit multi per 3% crit avoidance. So if you have the blessing for crit avoidance, that's also going to be really good survivability and a ton of extra damage for your Falcon. So that's going to be a big stat that you want to be focusing in on gear. Otherwise, I get the 4-point bonus over here into Expediency, just so I can have that extra potion slot and have that increased haste effect, which is really nice. Also, I can pop the potion for haste. Otherwise, Tailwind for less damage taken while moving and increased movement speed. Also, these are going to double on a Falcon hit. So overall, those are going to be very strong. And I also have Deflect and Weave, so our block chance goes into Glancing Blow chance, and we just have a little bit more. So it's a lot of extra Glancing Blow, and that way you guys can take 35% less at basically all times. We can get a little bit more later on, but right now my survivability has been really, really good. And then the Marksman tree, a big one that I have is Draining Arrows, so the attack speed is really nice, just so we stand still for a less amount of time. And also, whenever we use a bow attack and hit an enemy, we're going to regain some health. This is going to work really well with our explosive like blast rain stuff. And then also I am filling in just a little bit more crit chance over here. Once again, just like this node, if I do end up getting more crit chance on my gear, I can spec out of these and move them into like more dexterity or defensive nodes across these passive points. But right now, that's currently what I'm running at level 88. Time to look over our gear and our idols. And also I'll have my stat sheet up over here. Also, I do a lot of beacons, and I have 0% void resistance right now, and I'm still never dying in them. So that's where I was saying this build can be incredibly tanky too, and I can't even imagine once I get all my resistances sorted out, my endurance threshold and endurance percentage, all that worked out. I think we're going to be almost unkillable and still dealing millions of damage, which would be really, really cool. Otherwise, taking a look at the gear for your helmet and chest piece, you're going to want the falconry set. So that's going to give us dexterity and base melee damage for our falcons. Also the throwing damage if we ever get the aerial assault skill for the featherfall. That's going to help it out as well. Otherwise, on these, you're going to want to be grabbing dexterity where you can. Obviously, health and things like that as your suffixes. I do have some vitality on here. I would like... I believe you can get dive bomb damage and area on your helmet. So I would actually replace vitality with that in a perfect world. Otherwise, on my chest piece, I did find this last night and I was losing my mind. So this is a tier 7 affix dive bomb, which is unreal. So we get another 4 points into there. So that's really been helping us out. But once again, you don't need all those points that that I have in here, but the minion damage on there is really nice. Otherwise, I just focus into more dexterity, health, and just survivability. Now, the bow, the thing that you're really going to be looking for, use your runes of ascendance if you have them. That's where I got mine so far, is the Talons of Valor. So this is gonna give you base crit chance and up to +4 into each of the 3 Falcon abilities. So that's why we can get a ton of extra points and really ramp up that damage. And then on top of all that, the other effect at the bottom is when you critically strike an enemy, your Falcon's going to gain 25 base melee damage for 4 seconds, and your Falcon abilities recover 25% of their remaining cooldown, and there's only a 1 second cooldown on this. So you're going to be spamming your explosive traps anyways. You're going to have really high crit chance, at least enough with how many traps come out of this, that you're going to be critting on every single hit, and you're going to be having this buff at all times. This thing is just so good, and I can't even wait until we get legendary potential on one. I've been farming my butt off for one. Still have not found one with legendary potential. Otherwise, the quiver really doesn't matter which one. You can do like attack speed. There's the bow crit multi, and there's also the ivory for some resistances. Just pick whichever of the 3. If you're doing a loot filter, I would just put like all 3 in there and just go with whatever it drops with the best affixes. This is one of my worst pieces right now. So I would like to have exalted crit chance on here, and there's some other options. I believe you can get crit multi on here, and some other options. Let me double check really quick. We can get minion damage on there instead of physical damage. So anything like that is going to be really nice. Otherwise, fill out your defenses here. I think you can also get crit strike avoidance. No, you can get shred armor on hit on your quiver. That would be a really nice one, just so you can stack up more shred armor for when you dive bomb. And then moving on over to our gloves. Right now I have the arcane bracers just for a little bit more mana. There's a couple options you can do. The crit chance ones, these are nice just because, like I said, you do need a little bit more mana with this build just to maintain it. Otherwise, minion damage, crit chance. I do have exalted hybrid health on these. That's a big reason I picked these. And crit strike avoidance, once again, is going to be survivability for ourselves and also extra damage for our Falcon. So that's why you're going to be grabbing that where you can. My boots right now, I just do exalted movement speed and then get dexterity. Those are the main 2 ones. And then just health, base health, hybrid health, anything like that. For our relic, I use the ancient coin so we can get to the increased crit chance and health back on crit. Otherwise, crit multi, minion damage. You can also get to the aerial assault points on here. So eventually I'm going to drop minion damage for the aerial assault points. Otherwise, I currently have endurance threshold and some resistances. Anything like that is fine. Now, my belt, I just run the spider silk for the extra resistances to fill out some areas of my defenses. On here, I'm just going to do like minion damage, mana regen, and then some health defensive things as their suffixes. Now, for the rings, you're going to want the turquoise. You're going to want turquoise for all 3 of your jewelry. But for this ring, I currently have minion damage, physical damage. I would really, really like to get dexterity and minion damage on these. I think that's going to be my overall best bet. You're going to want to get probably exalted dexterity is going to be what you're going for on those. Otherwise, just fill out some defenses. This one is still a level 31 ring. It has 3 dexterity, 30 minion damage, and 5 and 6 necrotic. I still have not found a better ring yet, which is mind-blowing. I found this, but no better ring. So I guess the luck has to even out somehow. But yeah, you guys can get much better rings than I do. And then for my amulet, the turquoise one, like I said, I currently have exalted mana on here. That really has not been the worst option, but once I get to the mana blessing, I can end up dropping this for one with like actual like damage stuff on here, so we can get crit chance and crit multi as our prefixes on here, and then just fill in some defenses where you can. Now, in terms of idle, right now I'm running like shared crit multi on a couple slots, also some vitality and physical damage, also bow crit chance and some shred armor. But ideally what I really want to have is the shared crit multi and then also bow crit chance. You can have that on one of these adorned idols, and I want to fill in 4 of those and then just do like health mana idols in between, because you can get 4 of those. I think that's going to be my ideal setup for the idols, but right now this has been working pretty well until I get exactly what I'm looking for. I did quickly want to mention, before you guys do get the unique bow, if you guys are still running like rare or exalted bows, on here I'd really like to focus on crit multis. Also in the suffixes you can get the base minion melee damage, And you can also get base crit chance and bow attack speed is actually a prefix you can get too. So any bows with those are going to be working really well for you until you get your unique bow. And then if you guys are getting into the LP territory, getting crit multi, that crit chance and fire rate is going to be really good on there. And also the flat minion melee damage is going to be nice to throw on there. Obviously you can't pick exactly, but those are probably my top 3 affixes to try to throw on your unique bow. I did just want to mention that really quick. But yeah, overall this has seriously been the most powerful build I have ever used in Last Epoch. It is just so strong. Right there you can see it was basically 2 mils across the board, just short of them without even stacking that high. And also on these dummies, I don't even get the explosive trap stuff over here, the trap sprinklers. Those don't even proc. So in an actual scenario, these are going to be ricocheting like another 2 times, and it's going to be stacking up your sky signal much higher. So that's why this build is just so powerful. I really do hope you guys enjoy. Hopefully it makes getting through the game super easy, lets you farm up for your other characters, any other fun builds that you guys have in mind. Overall, this has been an absolute blast, and I'm really excited to keep farming for it just because of the new faction system. With all of like the loot bonuses you can get, it actually feels like possible to get crazy gear like that I have right here. So I'm really excited to finish putting it all together with like some LP and things like that. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy the build video, make sure you leave a thumbs up on it to let me know. Also consider subscribing for more Last Epoch content. I'm going to have a ton of builds in this game, so make sure you guys do not miss out on that. But anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. See ya.